Hey guys, so as I showed you before, I have one of these Seed Studio SenseCap wireless industrial sensors. This one is set up for temperature and humidity monitoring, although they do make quite a few different models. You can see that these SenseCaps are self-contained units, they're waterproof, and they have a battery built in, so they're just ready to go right out of the box. Now, in order to rapidly deploy this, I'm going to use the Qubitro Portal as well as the ThingStack to connect it up. To get us started, I have a demo project within Qubitro and a demo application within the ThingStack. I'm going to get started by going to into the Qubitro portal and selecting the ThingStack and continue so that we can get our webhook credentials. And then within the ThingStack, I'm going to go to integrations and webhooks, add webhook, Qubitro. I'm going to give this a random ID. Then click to copy the project ID from Qubitro and paste that into the ThingStack. The same with the signing key. And create the webhook. And there we go. Now, any data that we submit to this ThingStack application will be forwarded on into Qubitro. So the next step we got to do is add our SenseCap. And you'll notice on the sticker there's a device EUI and there is a key. This key is not an application key like what's typical with LoRaWAN devices. Rather, this is a Seed Studio key. So if you look in either the Getting Started guide for the sensor or in the Qubitro Seed SenseCap documentation, there is the sensecap.seed.cc URL, where at the end you paste in the EUI as well as the key. And if you go ahead and make this web request either through the browser or using curl, like I have done right here, you'll get returned all of the LoRaWAN information needed to connect up the device. So we have the device EUI, the application EUI, and the application key. We can go ahead and use this by going into End Devices, Add End Device. I'm going to search for the SenseCap. This one's the temperature and humidity sensor in the United States region. I'm going to use the Used by Things Network frequency plan. And then copy over these details like the application EUI, the device EUI, as well as the application key. And there we go. Now we have all the defaults for this device already set up. But there's one default that's incompatible with Qubitro, and that's the default payload formatter. See, the payload formatter for this returns an array of JSON objects when Qubitro expects one root JSON document. So we're going to go back into the Qubitro documentation. And if we scroll down, you're going to find this pre-made payload formatter. We're going to copy this. Now I'm going to put this into the device's payload formatter, but it would also work for the entire project if you were deploying a fleet of these. I'm going to hit custom JavaScript formatter and paste that in. So now any data that gets sent by the sensor, Qubitro will be able to read it correctly. I'm going to go ahead and get us started by turning on this device. When you turn it on, you'll see the one red LED flash. And if we go to Overview over here, we can see that it did join. Now we're just going to wait a moment to submit a webhook. There it goes right there. So if we go back into the Qubitro portal and refresh, there's our device right there. So now I'm going to wait a couple of minutes. You'll notice that if I click this device, there's no data. That's because on the first webhook, it'll add the device, and then the next webhooks after that, it'll be submitting the actual data. So I'm going to wait for a couple of data points to accumulate. That way I can show you some charts. So I'll be right back. All right, there we go. So now I've let a couple of data points come through, and I'm going to refresh the Qubitro portal. And now we can see our data points. And if we go back to the Overview tab, you can see some details about the last packet that was sent. So we can see the frame counter, what the port was that sent that frame, some connection strength details, consumed airtime, and also the location of the gateway that is being used to connect up the sensor, obviously. So if we go into the Analytics tab, we can go ahead and start to chart this. So temp and humidity. Gonna do red and blue, I guess. And there we go, easy to view chart. But you might also want to create a dashboard for this. So if you go to the monitoring tab, now I'm not going to create a widget here. I want to show you something else. But for widgets, we do have a liquid gauge, analytics, and indicator gauge, line chart, bar chart, area chart, label, simple gauge, temperature gauge, barometer gauge, speed gauge, map, battery, and clock. So hopefully, no matter what your data is, it'll fit one of those. So in order to interact with Qubitro, I'm actually going to go to the Credentials tab, and I'm going to hit Generate New API Key. And for the API, we have this beautiful documentation. I'm going to go ahead and grab this key right here. And I'm going to actually instead get a device. So if you have a program that you wish to interact with Qubitro, you can go ahead and use any of the pre-made endpoints. And here we go. We have information about the device. So, you know, the typical when the device was created, what the description is, all of that, but also some of that LoRaWAN information. So you can all just get it from one place programmatically through your application. So that is just how fast it is to deploy devices to Qubitro. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your conference.